We're both wearing black.
You're black. Hello, everyone. Your laziest Sunday school teacher ever, RP Grizzly, is here at last, and the eye candy to my right over here, dolled up for you guys. Already a like. Shh, can admit it's fine. Dolls up more for the internet these days for me. That's a lie. Anyway, how you guys all doing? Hope you're having a good time. I'm here. I'm gonna hopefully get some coffee or something soon. We'll be a little more high energy. Yeah. You guys didn't have to wait too long. My children tried to shatter my spine and my skull right before bed, but it worked. They're mostly asleep except for one who's making cute little like room noises in his bedroom. It's his new favorite thing. It goes room. Yes, iced coffee. Woman's working on it. Say hi, woman.
I'm working on it.
She's very excited for the stream, and I'm just trying to get energy after work.
How would you get excited for us?
Ooh, splash of vanilla. Too poor for vanilla right now, but I do get paid tomorrow. Maybe we can get something fun. Oh man. Whew.
Another day, another Monday.
Another Monday.
I will do this homemade chocolate syrup for your iced coffee.
That sounds good. Oh, by the way, you're at the Sunday school stream. The Warriors Path Sunday school lessons for young men. I should probably say what you're in since I have such different streams now. Oh man, too. I don't know about you, Skydog, but I am drooling over all those punks who are lucky enough to get into Play 4.0. You're not in Wave 1, are you? I forget what you have to do to get on Wave 1. Is it just a luck thing, or do you have to spend like thousands of dollars? You're Wave 2. I am Wave only when they open up to everybody. So you have to let me know how fun it is. my wife keeps threatening to contact your wife over Star Citizen. Knowing you probably have some big ship that needs 1 billion turrets, and I have a lot of kids, so when Star Citizen 1.0 comes out, my kids will probably be 14. Yeah, 6 years from now, 7.
Jason would be 8.
It's true.
11. 6 years from now.
7. So yeah.
12.
You're right. Whew. No, we should probably get into it. I always don't know how long I should do this little.
Did the screen load?
Intro. I think the screen loaded. Let me check. Nope.
Are you serious?
It decided that it was just not going to load the image, but I suppose we don't do that. My internet is so crappy that it was giving me I was having flashbacks to the DSL time of my childhood. Back where I would sit there waiting for GameSpy to load. You remember GameSpy? You're watching all the images slowly go down the screen, and you're just sitting there waiting. And that was fast internet back in the day. Man, I sound like a boomer. Woo! Apocalypse might suck, but we'll have great internet.
I feel like an idiot.
Why?
I found my sponge.
Sure, there was a reason why I was over there. I won't question it.
Table.
Well, I suppose that's acceptable. And is it working? Children? Yes. I am small. I am no longer blinding you with my very bald head. Yes, it highlights it all the more. I wore a hat at work today because of the black shirt. Well, we'll get right into this. Now, it's funny. This lesson, in some ways, is one of the more important lessons. Men like us, young men and older men who are more of the warrior type, more willing to fight, more capable of fighting, not as bothered by the results of fighting. You know, blood and guts, death. You know, I joke a lot when I point out there's this whole stage that I went through when dealing with libertarians where I would point out that they're being degenerate perverts everywhere. And they would say, but you want your violent shows. Look at the violence. Death is worse than, premarital sex. And my response back then was a little more introspection, like, well, you know what? Murder is worse. And now I look at it and I go, no, kids can handle violence and they can handle sexual content. The hell are you talking about? Go take your somewhere else and preferably die on your way. Libertarians, I know they're not all that way, but the ones that are still libertarian now, they're libertarian tards. You know, the libtard thing, add libertarian tards to it. I realized that all they want is drugs, boobs, and what degeneracy that tickles their fancy. But they want to pretend like they have a philosophy too. Now, you know, for Sigma types, like Vox, like me, like other people, probably use Skydog, but I'm just making assumptions there. Or and I'm referring to just antisocial in this sense. We like anything that says everyone leave everybody alone because we've been trying to get people to leave us alone for ages and they just won't do it.
And when he tries to do so, it's like final.
Yeah, I know. I used to crack up whenever like the woman or the gamma male type would like get so mad at you that they threaten to leave or leave you alone or like give you the silent treatment and you go, oh great, that's what I've been wanting this whole time. Finally you're shutting. When I was younger, I leaned towards it, but not altogether, because just the standard logic of it really annoyed me. Whenever they would say, "Oh, legalizing marijuana will, lower the crime rate," my first thought was, "Yeah, if you legalize anything, it lowers the crime rate for a bit because now something that was illegal is no longer illegal, so all those crimes are just expunged. That doesn't mean the negative behavior suddenly stops." From that logic, hey, let's legalize murder. With all the murders no longer being a crime, suddenly our crime rates will really go down. But things, libertarians, when it's actually implemented, you find that the opposite usually happens. Like that big pot local places that have legalized drugs, have they had a remarkable decrease in crime? In all of those places, their crime is actually skyrocketing. It's hilarious. But, like I said, I don't know why I'm starting so political, but I feel like it before my coffee. You're going to have to suck it up.
You get political before you have coffee?
Yeah.
Who would have known?
Is what their argument really comes down to is you got to, it's one of those things. It's kind of like atheism. It's dying out fast. Like it's so no one really cares for it anymore. There's just like the older dudes who are like holding out, and some really prideful gamma types who don't realize that the culture shifted yet to shift their. Isn't that amazing how that works? When the midwits and the middle people realize that the culture shifted away, and they instantly, suddenly I think this. I'm just, what, we've made it, and we really wanted the culture though. When the midwits go, yeah, you know what? Witch burning wasn't that bad. When that happens, you've shifted that Overton window in a golden direction. When the middle types feel like to stay in the group and part of the group, they have to say, yeah, you know what? Burning evil people, not so bad. We like it. There'll always be something though. They can't. You're right back there. Can't handle. Like for example.
When the chicken blood spilled,
Yeah.
I cleaned the thing.
Good.
So I'm just putting it back in.
They're gonna, they probably have this image of like, no, it's like raw chicken goop slipped out of the bag that she was defrosting. And if we didn't like murder a chicken in our Pretty sure the foxes around here, like I see a trail every now and then. I'm pretty sure chickens would not last very long around here unless better fences and shit.
Bears.
The bears around here, I mean, as long as they're getting their trash, like I'm not happy about it because the bears around here have no fear of humanity. And they run when you make a loud noise, but they'll come like right up your house after your trash, which is a real problem. Get it? That means when they don't get the trash for whatever reason, they're going to be much more getting the food. But don't think about that. When we first moved here, there was a story about a young lady, I don't know how young, probably 20s, walking her little chihuahua thing, or small dog. The bear went after the dog, wanting an easy snack. She picked up the dog, got between the bear and its snack, and well, guess what? It killed her. Right?
No shit.
Cool. They get used to an animal being docile because all its food needs are taken care of, and they keep a good enough distance away. But they never think about what happens when it doesn't get the easy food source. Well, the first thing for easier food sources nearby, it has a pattern. It's going to stick to the pattern. Those rat mazes and whatnot, right? The rat always goes at the same spot. Well, a bear is going to go to the same spot it's been getting food. It's going to expect food every time, and if it doesn't get it, there's going to be trouble. Well, at least they're just black bears. There's some big ones though. I need to start the lesson. But I'll finish that little tangent about libertarians. Most people grow out of it because when you eventually get into the philosophy of it, you realize there's no philosophy. Whatever vice you want, and still have some conservative leaning, probably not the right word, like right leaning tendencies. Like you know, one of the big ones that always is eye opening for me, it should have been for everybody who was leaning towards that, was their view on abortion, right? Like, oh yeah, a woman should have a right to murder the baby inside. We're like, okay, so women have more freedom than babies, got it, and can literally murder the babies on a whim. It's, the babies apparently don't get to be left alone. Right? And I think it also kind of shows the vice behind it, right? A lot of those guys want pussy, and they want pussy without any consequences. So abortion to them wasn't sacrifice to Moloch. It was just a quick way out of a broken condom, if you know what I mean, or a woman tricking them into it or something. And so of course, and then you had the whole gamma field in that group who wanted everything with their free boobs online and all the rest, and were like towards the women and all that. Like, yes, you can have all the abortions you want, just please sleep. I apologize if anyone can. Serious Bible matters. Why is this guy going on? Well, everything's connected, I'm afraid. And the Bible is pretty clear that you have to actually push for morality inside. Sure, there's justice. You don't keep the perversion out. Sometimes it's just he removes his protection and you get very freaky things you're allowing in. Sometimes he literally calls someone up to destroy you. And, bad day all around. So we'll get started, though. I've said it 5 times and talked for 15 minutes about random stuff. Lesson 15. The man who couldn't build the temple. As we've established, though not perfect, David was a man after God's own heart. Oh, I should probably... yeah, it's fine. I don't feel like sharing more links. I'm that kind of tired right now. David was a man after God's clarity. And David inquired of the Lord, shall I go up against the Philistines? Will you give them into my hand? And the Lord said to David, go up, for I will certainly give the Philistines into your hand. And David like a breaking flood. Therefore, the name of this place is called Baal Perazim. And the Philistines left their idols there, and David and his men carried them away. And the Philistines came up yet again and spread out in the valley of Rephaim. And David inquired of the Lord. He said, "You shall not go up, shall not go up. Go around to their rear and come against them opposite the balsam trees. And when you hear the sound of marching in the rouse yourself, for the Lord has gone out ahead before you to strike down." And David did as the Lord commanded him and struck down the Philistines from Geba to Gezer. 2 Samuel 5:19-25. Now, I've already gushed on David's ability to literally get battle tactics from God, which still blows my mind. I shouldn't tangent too long on it, but like, could you imagine? I don't know, someone like Patton going into his room full of generals and said, "So I prayed. We're not going to hit the right flank. We're going to hit the left. Are there any questions?" God? God. Okay. We've also shown how much of a warrior David was. He slaughtered entire villages, had a cadre of mighty men, fought most of his reign, and fought a civil war in the wake of King Saul's death. He was also an outlaw Robin Hood style in caves for a time, where he enacted actions modern churchians would find repulsive. And yet he was God's man on earth. Still, a reminder is necessary. Is not a pagan god. He doesn't have only one or two facets and responsibilities and abilities. He isn't just a god of war, or of ocean like Poseidon, or of the mountains, or of valleys as these poor sods discovered. Then the prophet, yeah, then the prophet came near to the king of Israel and said to him, "Come, strengthen yourself and consider well what you have to do, for in the spring the king of Syria will come up against you." And the servants of the king of Syria said to him, "Their gods are gods of the hills, and so stronger than we. But let us fight against them in the plain, and surely we shall be stronger than they." And his post and put commanders in their places, and must in the plain, and surely we shall be stronger. In the spring, Ben-Hadad mustered the Syrians and went up to against Israel. And the people of Israel were mustered and were provisioned and went against them. The people of Israel encamped before them like two little flocks of goats, but the Syrians filled the country. God came near and said to the king of Israel, "Thus says the Lord, because the Syrians have said, the Lord is a God of the hills, but he is not a God of the valleys. Therefore I will give all this great multitude into your hand, and you shall know that I am the Lord." And they encamped opposite one another 7 days. Then on the seventh day the battle was joined, and the people of Israel struck down of the Syrians 100,000 a day. 1 Kings 20:22-29. Oh gosh, I hate it when I do that. Oh, I clicked. No, God is the Almighty and above all, which means no one category holds him. He is a God for the warrior, the poet, the farmer, the king, the peasant, rich and poor. As Paul puts elegantly, there's more than one job within the kingdom of heaven. And that's important to remember, right? This isn't, a lot of people kind of want to put God in a box of what he's willing to do, what he can't be. And they forget the many facets and many angles of who he is in his personality, and that he's an ancient being that encompasses so much. He's not Aphrodite that was only about like crafts and warfare and blah 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 and like wisdom, and for Ares it was just like the aggression and war. Zeus, who was master of all the gods, but very specifically towards weather and mountains and things, and blah blah blah. Or right, God is all of those things put together. Right, he is not a piece of something. He is the something, and thus he is extremely complicated. And is a God for everyone who is willing to follow him. For just as the body is one and has many members, and all the members of the body, though many, are one body, so it is with Christ. For in one spirit we were all baptized into one body, Jews or Greeks, slaves or free, and all were made to drink of one spirit. For the body does not consist of one member, but of many. If the foot should say, "Because I am not a hand, I do not belong to the body," what would that make? If what would that make it any? That would not make it any less a part of the body. And if the ear should say, "Because I am a part of the body," if the body was an ear, where would the sense of smell? But as it is, God arranged the members in the body, each one of them as he chose. If all were a single member, where would the body be? As it is, there are many parts, yet one. The eye cannot say to the hand, "I have no need of you," nor again the head to the feet, "I have." On the contrary, the parts of the body that seem to be weak, those parts of the body that we think less honorable. Oh, thank you, Ryan. Honorable. Don't forget your sushi.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Have that.
Grocery store actually has decent sushi around here. We took advantage. We think less honorable, we bestow the greater honor, and our unpresentable parts are treated with greater modesty. Which our most presentable parts do not compose the body, giving greater honor to the part that lacks it. There be no division in the body, but that the members may have the same care for one another. If one member suffers, all suffer together. If one member is honored, all rejoice. Now you are the body of Christ, and individually members of it. For instance, 12 through 27. Wait, shoot, I messed up there. I'm going to have to go back and fix that. One of my personal complaints against the modern churches, all churches, whether evangelical, Baptist, Catholic, downplayed the warriors in their midst. In extreme blood of God's enemies to be an anathema. Their very natural tendencies to be based on the craftsman and the man of the field turning against the man of war. As a child, thinking I was an absolute monster. Because, the thought of violence just didn't bother me as much. My natural tendency towards protection of the things I cared about and a lack of caring towards the things that were being stuff I loved, scared me on some levels. I remember I also, when I was younger, found I had a very natural instinct for hurting things. That shouldn't be taken out of context. As my brain, lots of buffering. Oh, sad day. Yeah, come up again. Let me know. Needed me to recap anything. But basically, I remember one day I was wrestling with, and he had me pinned, and my mind instantly jumped to how I could instantly get off of him, and it would have been almost crippling. I would, whoa, we don't want to do that. And the evangelical group that I was with started out as a pacifist group. They are not pacifists anymore, but they're very much, oh, you only fight wars with blah blah blah, only like World War II type wars, right? Unless when the Satanists tell us we can fight a war, kind of mentality. The thing I'm getting at with this is I have a natural protector in me, and shall we say, many of the even Sky sucks. Attack the protector, right? Attack the person who would go out and be offensive against you, right? You know what's even better than a sheepdog? Going in and attacking the wolves where they live, stopping them before they can attack the sheep. When you're only defensive, you give the initiative to the enemy every time. So our churches have created the proper man of war, made him feel like he is a monster, and his base instincts to want to defend and destroy evil to be evil in and of itself. Uh, there are many reasons why these factions turn to this. Turn to this. The craftsman has a natural distrust for those who destroy rather than build. The farmer and the man of the field for those who the farmer and the man of the field for those who don't provide for their own food, and the woman because she has a strange perverse desire. Young man of war is in direct opposition to that perverse self-destructive desires. Of course, David come to mind. That said, we are rapidly approaching time period where the man of war will no longer be the wild ostracized uncle in the corner everyone wishes to expunge. He will be the one leading the sons of the nations in the church because we are coming to an era where Christendom will be discovering why the barbarian was called the barbarian and the savage. So only those who follow the warrior will survive. But in this there is a danger. I implore my fellow men of war to not to do war not to do we have an escape.
Back. Now. Close.
That wasn't random. Discovering why the barbarian. Oh, could you turn up the air? Maybe that's a problem. But in there is a danger. I implore my fellow men of war not to do what our brothers of the craft, the fields, the arts, and the. We mustn't look down upon them, undervalue them, or degenerate them. We are not better than them. We are but men called just as them. And ours is to be a shield between them and the savage manipulated by the serpent, by the empire that never ended at our gates, and by the demon and the freak in the. David said to Solomon, my son, to the name of the Lord my God. But the word of the Lord came to me, saying, You have shed much blood, and have waged great wars. You shall not build a house to my name, because you have shed so much blood before me. Behold, a son shall be born to you, who shall be a man of rest. I will give him rest from all his surrounding enemies, for his name shall be Solomon, and I will give peace and quiet to Israel in his days. He shall build a house for my name. He shall be my son, and I will be his father, and I will establish his royal throne in Israel forever. 1 Chronicles 22, 7 through 10. No one tool is sufficient, and thus, as the body of Christ, we must gather to allow God's will to be fulfilled in our nations and families. This is a reality. Blood does taint. The man of peace is as important to the kingdom of heaven as the man of war. So neither should degenerate the other, but rather see how the Father in heaven uses the body of Christ. Now, shoot back here for a second. Which one's my fork?
Four.
Ha! Sushi! Ironically, talking of warriors not taking over cultures. What better example than Japan? Right? Now, obviously, they've lost their way. The current, I don't like the current Japan. They're a little freaky. I respect that they want to keep their culture safe, and that's good. But we can see that they've gone like completely in the other direction. They've gone from like warriors being so central that like if you the way they treated other people was as bad as the Mongols.
Of me having like a little Asian in my eyes because of my Mongolian part of the Cossacks, it doesn't make it too bad.
Exactly. There you go.
There you go. Stupid.
Wisdom. I just rolled with that. point is, Japan's a great example of going one way too far and then like swinging the pendulum all the way to the other side and then like smashing it through a window or like the wall and blowing it up. Like obviously, the imperial period of Japan taking things too far, or the more violent medieval's not the right word. Feudal Japan, right? All these things were going a little too far on the warrior side, to the point that they were not advancing technologically. Their culture really was stagnating in a lot of ways. So I'm going to continue. you. All right. Invading Korea and causing so much deep-seated in Korea and China, all the invasions and stuff. To this day, there's so much bad blood. Japan really needs to work overtime in World War III to make sure they don't kill them out of just centuries of revenge. Another great example would be the Vikings. Don't mind me eating on screen here. Next time we're eating. It was ridiculous.
Piece of string longer.
Right? The Vikings were easily manipulated before they became proper Christians, and even afterwards tended to make war on their fellow Christians far more than they did on the infidel or pagans or anything like that. And often were more likely to attack farmers and avoid a fight, annoyingly. There were more pirates in that sense. But basically, hey, we attack you when you're weak, pay us the 90% of the time, unless they were Norman, in which case they were just cases. We'll get back into this, right? Father in heaven has uses for all of his servants in the body of Christ. This is imperative. The guile of the snake and the tools of the arts. Look at the power of Hollywood that Hollywood had and to a lesser extent still has over the. Through art, they have held the man of war's mind on behalf of the enemy of their God, wasting their blood on pointless world wars, which were civil wars between the brothers of Christ, as discussed. We, as the body of Christ, will always be outnumbered in our fight. This is just the nature of our enemy and the narrow path we follow. So the craftsman is paramount for the field. Without his tools, the Muslim would have swallowed Europe and stamped out even the memory of Christianity on the continent, just as they did in North Africa and the Middle East. Without the new cannons at the Battle of Lepanto, at the Battle of Lepanto, we would have ended up with the fall of the Mediterranean and perhaps the Italian peninsula as well, which would have led to the fall of the rest of Europe. What? And there's a little bit to unpack there. When I say the man of war is very susceptible to propaganda, he really is. Like, a lot of our kind aren't, but enough are. How many went off during 9/11 off to kill a bunch of muzzies? Saudi Arabians destroy a tower. Let's go and forget Afghanistan. All the other places we randomly attacked, right? Susceptible to the propaganda created by the craftsman, influenced by the serpent and by Satan. If you don't have a positive version of that propaganda fighting back, you will be overwhelmed and you'll be unable to fight back. For example, think about the whole Epstein affair. Has anything happened with that? Why hasn't our men of war risen up and destroyed the obvious evil in our midst? enough of them know about it. We also know a sizable amount of them probably have more information about it because they were there investigating, right? Why has nothing happened? We know the leaders are involved. No one released the list. There wasn't like an outcry, a rebellion, a demand for justice, right?
Save the last one for you.
Oh, aren't you cute? And the answer is because the man of war has been so suppressed by the propaganda that he thinks he can only act when the devil tells him he can. And that means also that we can't act and you shouldn't act because, well, you'll just die alone. Because no one will join you. Because no one will join you. Not till more boomers die, at least. So, and even then, in this stream, I have to say, I am not doing a call of violence. You should not do violence. Blah, blah, blah. Legally safe. Blah, blah, blah. Where's my chair? So, it's paramount that we don't give up the arts. It can be tempting to just concentrate on the fight, physical, spiritual, whatever it is, and ignore the arts. But the arts, they're the ticket to your soul. They can control if you're not careful. Some of it's straight up spiritual warfare and like almost hypnotism. It's just speaking to the better part of you, but twisting the lie. Just allow something in. Like, is it, do you really? Well, they're not bothering anyone. They're just over there. And then training. And then putting you in jail for trying to stop it. What he said. I don't know if you guys can hear that kid just saying, yeah. So one of the reasons why every facet of the body of Christ is important. And as I brought up here, the craftsman is important, the engineer, if you will, because so many battles God used the creation of our hands, the works of our hands. And only by that edge, or extra edge of technology, were we able to win battle. Engagements with different barbarian groups and again, I can't reiterate how close things got to all of Christendom in Europe being destroyed and even its memory being wiped out. Again, all of North Africa, Middle East, everything except for the Arabian Peninsula itself, the Turkey, all of that was Christian. There was a third bishop in Alexandria, which is in Egypt, right? He was in charge of that entire area. He had as much influence as the Pope. Let that sink in. There was that many in the Africa, like Mediterranean area. And not even a memory of them is left. No one thinks about all the Christian colonies and stuff like that were originally Greek colonies, that Alexandria and all those other places, right? All we think about are the Moors and the Arabs and the Muslims that live there now. Islam is extremely good at destroying history. What's that obnoxious song, Istanbul, dun, dun, Constantinople? But if you listen, they're not Constantinople. They go what? And if you listen to the words, what does even our culture tell us about that change? It says, I don't know, but I don't know why they've changed the name, but maybe they like it. About invasion, destruction, and building on of the once great civilization that was there. That was Constantinople. On top of all of the great cathedrals there. And from that made everyone's mind think of it as nothing but an Arabic and Muslim place. It's amazing how they've crushed this memory from the collective memory from history books half the time. Like of Alexandria being so powerful. Like the original Christian system that was set up was a three-parter. You had the bishop in Rome, You had the bishop in Alexandria, you had the patriarch in Constantinople, and these three groups, right? I don't know if the patriarch was always in Constantinople because that was a newer city, but the Eastern Coptics, right? And these three groups had like equal sharing power within the church. Also, the Pope originally had children. That's where his name Pope came from. Like his son would be on his knee and they'd say Papa, and everyone just ended up calling him Pope, Papa. His name literally means father because he used to be an actual father, not the first few popes. And you know, celibate? Oh, that's because they didn't want to inherit church property. It was all about the freaking money. It wasn't about, oh, they'll be holy like Paul. No, that's just a lie that they share now. It was all about money and power. That was all it was. So that the money and power stayed within the organization, not the religion, mind. Not the connection to Christ. Not that. It was all about the money and power. Thank you for that. And Coptics don't think you get out of this. Leaders are also celibate for the same reason. I don't know why this weird of thinking celibate people have any business in any leadership position ever because they're not invested in the next generation. You can't trust them. I mean, no offense if you're celibate. If God called you to that path, I respect you, but you do not have the connection to the next generation that those of us who have had children have. You may think you do, but you don't. And this is something that repeats throughout history, right? There was actually a tactic in the world where they would castrate certain slaves that were put into leadership positions. Certain leadership positions under kings. Why did they do that? Because, he doesn't have an invested future. He doesn't have kids to inherit his wealth. So he's less likely to steal the wealth of the king. Right? It was a control thing. But the kings always needed to have kids to go down the line because the idea still is, and should stay, if I don't do my best to make a good kingdom and the best kingdom of my people, my children, my personal children will suffer for it. Now, there's always selfish bastards out there. Don't get me wrong. Like a crowd that's even more capable. Nothing in the next generation to care for. That's just reality. And it shows up time and time again. Random soapbox is random. I should get back to my thing. After all, I should point out those who are called to the monk's life are part of the body of Christ and have their point. I don't think it's in leadership, though. I think it's in monk stuff, which sounds kind of funny. But, that kind of thing, devoting themselves to God and prayer and all that kind of stuff. It is a worthy field. Missionaries, 100% shouldn't be invading and then having their children there and then changing the culture they're there. Like, the point is to make that culture Christian, not make it British or German or Italian, or let's say the other way. There's lots of Korean missionaries in Nicaragua, for example. Korean, right?
What is that? It was so strange to me. It's like
the point of whatever your nationality is, it's to make and to help them develop their own traditions that lead them towards proper theology and all that, so they don't go back to their old ways. But they're going to have their own ways of they're not going to do potlucks the way you do, baby. The important part is that they serve Christ and not their ones. Anyway, you may wonder, well, why does a missionary having children cause problems with this? Well, that's because, like it or not, the more people from one nationality in one place, the more that place, the culture around it, the money flow, the power gets shifted in that direction. For example,
causes, identity issues.
Yeah. of the amount of transmission is staggering and disgusting. And yeah, that's a whole nother.
Yeah,
It's a
I had
whole
a little
nother stream.
discussion with that with my friend.
Man, I can't believe the stream is basically tostada till
Well,
something.
I looked at it.
It's back.
It's pretty much
Yeah, it's
back, but
probably buffering like crazy.
not like crazy, not too bad.
Huh.
I put my hand in it, give it a few seconds. Watch.
I'm watching what?
There.
Hey!
But
Just
then-
being gay. Oh well.
Sounds like, but whatever.
You sound like. But okay. So basically, movements of people is an invasion. So enough of the culture. They change the landscape. They change their culture.
Also, why put your kids in so much danger? It's known for pedophiles.
What? Not every culture is known for pedophiles, love. That was something specific for you.
I know, but still.
Yes. The point, very specifically, though, we're going high philosophy here, not just practicality. The high philosophy of it is you're not trying to conquer these people, you're trying to, right? So a mission, it can be seen as a form of invasion because if enough of them band together, enough of them form an enclave, they create a Chinatown, if you will. They create a British town, if you will. They create a Hong Kong, a great example. And they become a point of invasion. And the point of missionaries is a separate kingdom into the kingdom of heaven, almost like diplomats, right? That's their point, right? They're not supposed to push their own personal cultures onto that culture, right? And there's a fine line here. I get it, right? Because there's going to be aspects of that culture that needs to die. There's no way around it. Every culture was like that. Vikings worshiping Odin, freaking doing torture under sacrificing children to Thor and crap. Hey, it's all the what's going on? That part of the Viking culture has to die out. However, they're very tough way of doing things, the way they dressed, how they talked, their traditional gatherings and all the rest. Maybe they changed to more of a Christian feel, but all that needed to stay the same. They weren't supposed to become British when they became Christian. They were supposed to become Vikings who were Christian, and they pulled that off. It became the Swedes and the Swedish Empire, and honestly, they need to reevaluate that and become properly Christian again, and they might become tough. That would be entertaining. Yeah. It's distracting. Anyway. You need better internet, brother. You're telling me, but this is the best internet I can get for the money where I'm at. Sucks. Yeah, there's nothing here done. Yeah. So I do apologize for the quality of the stream, guys. Hopefully it'll go up. You guys can rewatch it in better quality or something. We
have a storm coming in.
That might be tomorrow. That might be some of the issue. Literally, the internet was running fine, and
all
the next thing you know,
time we were about to stream.
Coincidence? I think not.
Nope.
But we'll continue. So, get off my soapbox for a little bit. Yeah. Yet, as we see, the artist, the craftsman, the farmer, and the woman are toothless without the man of war willing to take the sword of the spirit against the enemy. How many times have we pointed to the corruption and satanic madness, such as the Epstein Pleasure Island and the degradation of law and civilization within the Western world? Did it matter how much the craftsman Can the farmer hope to protect his fields against the entire when the entire horizon is full of raiders thick as locusts like on Gideon's day? That's going to be Mexico, by the way, when the Aztecs come back. No. About the men of war, the body of Christ is at the mercy of the devil's corruption, for we are on a rebellious, dishonorable world. The rules, the laws are designed to cause injustice, so justice, vengeance, and righteousness will often only be obtained with the hilt of the sword and at the trigger of the avenger's rifle. So men of the body and women of the church, and not tell the eye that it is useless because it can't hear, or the leg because it we all serve our part, and only when working as one body can we hope to be instruments of God, used to frustrate the plans of our enemy. Think long and hard on this, because our enemy never sleeps and is always looking for an avenue to destroy us. And if that's impossible, to corrupt us till we lose our protection in Christ and are given over to their twisted desires. Don't let the devil have his way again, O men. Upon you makes you impregnable. Then the serpent to break you from within, and you will never hold. You will not eat without the man of the field. You will not have guns and tools, and you will have no more young men for the armies of heaven with children while you fight. Yours to make, my brothers in Christ. So I know a lot of you in lesson 15 is between Solomon and David. David, being the man after God's own heart, was still not allowed to build the temple of God's house, because he had slain so much blood. He had spilt so much blood on earth, and the blood does taint. As we see, when the earth literally cries out for justice ordered upon it. Which is really fascinating when you look back at it, right? Genesis is very clear that the way God knows that Cain killed Abel was that creation itself is crying out to him over the injustice that happened, the blood that it. And you have this language in the later on when they're creating the law, and God's giving them in Deuteronomy and Numbers and all this stuff. He talks about the avenger of blood, and their languages when there's this whole thing with the body, and they can't find the killer. The closest town do a special sacrifice on the location, on the land they found the body. And the wording was very much of the kind of like, we don't know how he died. We don't know who did it. We're trying to absolve our land is not corrupted. Very specific itself not being corrupted. Very fascinating thing. Very, I'm getting a little distracted on another soapbox here, but when you think about this, the cat is out by the box. He may our internet box. The internet is already dying. Don't do it, cat. What do we do? Do we think we'll spasm out and he'll drop it? It'll be fine. So, if you've ever thought about, for example, why there's lots of weird negative energy that often we're to a lot of like battlefields or places that have lots of death and unjust death, very specifically. Well, graveyards too, but generally unjust death. Like a lot of hospitals, for example, are very, especially psych wards back in the day and whatnot, are usually very haunted or thought to be haunted. I've even heard stories. It's crazy to me. Phantom ships. Ooh.
Airplanes.
Airports,
don't go to the airport. You know what the Suvarnabhumi airport in Thailand, the Bangkok International Airport.
Not surprising.
Supposedly.
Denver is supposed to
Yes,
Crap
they
in
have the big the yak giants, all 9 of them, all every so often, all over throughout the thing. They have
Giants
they look
again,
like
demonic
the
giants.
Guardians. They have the yeah. Oh my gosh.
Demonic Nephilim giants. If you guys haven't,
Yes. Oh.
you should watch our first episode of our creepy podcast between demonic giants and the Wendigo. See, there's this weird connection
Sword and everything.
in a bunch of different cultures between evil, crazy giants that drive you crazy and make you a cannibal or go eat people or kill things. Demon possession, Nephilim. Ooh, every culture has this weird feel about it. But I'm getting a little distracted. The point is, if the Christian Bible has concepts, Christianity, God, about the land being by evil. And again, we see this where a lot of Satanists and whatnot will always try to have their rituals on tainted ground or try to taint holy ground like a church, right? They try to have a ritual in the church. They try to disrupt the church, the power of all the prayers and stuff that have been made on that ground. They want to corrupt it. It's interesting, too. There's some specific stories about some specific Satanists. For example, one classic story, which isn't so much a story, it is actually documented fact because they caught the guys who did it. They down a well, but specifically, they did it. Blood from all the animals had tainted the ground. Energy there. One of the worst ever happened on the nightclub that was built on where that slaughterhouse was. In the same plot of that slaughterhouse. Yeah. So the slaughterhouse went away, and eventually the nightclub was created, and it was haunted by the 2 murderers who were killed. The 2 Satanist murderers. And it was, in fact, a Satanist ritual. They had admitted to it. They had all the signs and all that. They were killed for the crime, hung, and like they admitted to a bunch of it, too. It wasn't like, Salem, oh, they were tortured. No. These guys were very guilty of this crime. And the murderers were the ghosts that people were seeing. And also their victim.
Oh, my.
Some crazy crap with that case. I don't know its name. I thought haunting in a nightclub. You'd probably find it. Particularly the head down the well. Anyway. We also see them connected through nature a lot of times. Because remember, if we go through natural chaos.
Tree huggers.
Yeah. But bad tree huggers. Like we're here to bring nature into the kingdom of heaven, right? It's a process. Its natural state is not, it's good. Well, it's even worse now, right? When it was first created, it was good, but it had a natural chaos that was supposed to be tamed by us, right? That's the whole take dominion over the earth bit, right? The sin came into the world, it became even worse, right? And that part became even harder. So you can imagine, let's say you're thinking of these rituals and you're a satanic freak and you're trying to gain more power for your sacrifices and for whatever entity, give your entity more power. What would be the thing you would do? You would want the most ideal location would be a church that's been tainted in nature with lots of crime and stuff that have happened around it, maybe murders, maybe suicides. And then you taint it further by having those dark rituals on top of it. You get what I say? Even more murder, torture, horrible things. Tainting the land even more, giving it more and more over to the entity that you're giving yourself over to. Boosting. And the funny thing is, boosting. The funny thing is, right, this is how much trouble they have to go through. You know all you have to do to kick their asses? Pray. And maybe be willing to shoot one. But remember,
that's funny.
Mm-hmm.
The AG never allows missionaries to own guns.
Yeah, it's dumb as dumb.
It's stupid.
It's dumb. It's dumb. Sometimes God calls you to be a martyr. Sometimes he calls you to fight back enough so that the warrior people get the hit. As I've always brought up, the Mongol laughs at a martyr because he goes, I was just trying to kill you anyway. You can sing on the way there. I don't mind.
Whatever makes you happy.
Yeah, whatever you want, bro.
You're basically singing yourself a lullaby.
Like,
Anyway.
well, and even more than that, they're not going to even give you that chance. It's just dead. No, that's it.
You're off key one note.
Yeah, when you have that kind of issue, and for a long time you had the same problem with the Vikings as I brought up. Them being converted had a lot less to do with the martyrs and the monasteries and stuff that they raided, and a lot more to do with some specific kings of theirs being exiled and converting, and then taking back their kingdoms and slapping all their pagan brothers around and going, "Now you're Christian, bitch." It's much more why the Vikings. It was a very violent process. Okay.
This is why church and girls should date, not Christians.
Mhm.
They only
Right.
can't come.
So, all right. So that was a lot. As I was saying, though, right? Though you shouldn't underestimate the power of hallowed ground. God actually is. There are parts in the Bible where this very kind of thing happens. You should pray over land. Like, churches actually have a really good idea when they have days long prayer sessions or something. That's not bringing God's presence into one spot. Like, God's presence isn't locked to one place, right? Don't get me wrong there. But the land, according to the Bible, can absorb things like blood, like negative energies and whatnot. So, and I hate using the term energy because the freaking people have taken over that so hard.
All
right?
the negative waves.
Man, and then it makes you connect. It sounds like you're connecting to all those freaks.
Herb eaters.
In the end, they're just worshiping. What is giving them these positive vibes and they're in their drug session? It is a god, but it's not the god. And but it's spiritual energies. Ooh. The point is, positive things happening in an area have a positive effect of the land around it. Makes it more wholesome on a spiritual level, and the spiritual connection, the physical creation has God and all the rest, and also references to the negative, chaotic, primordial evil still being around and various things taking advantage of it. Witches are always in the woods, running around naked like weirdos, and they're connecting to up and other things and connecting to demons and all that kind of stuff. Demons are often seen in the woods, they're in deep stuff, or in the desolate places, right? What is most haunted places are abandoned or soon to be abandoned or trying to make themselves be abandoned. How many hauntings have you heard of where they're basically trying to drive the person out so that they can claim the land, right? The demonic entity or whatever it is, right? If it's not desolate, they're trying to make it desolate. That's something to think about. The Greeks were actually pretty base about this. There's this story before you get to the Minotaur, and where they're describing the island that the Minotaur's labyrinth's on, and was the Minotaur? No, it was the Cyclops. Wrong, the Cyclops, and they described rolling honking goats, and to our minds, like, oh, it's so beautiful, but to the Greeks, they would have been like, the Cyclops is stopping us from developing the land. So it was actually a negative to them that there was all these rolling fields that aren't being cultivated because the Cyclops is destroying anyone who tries to create a colony on the island. That's pretty base. Now, understand something. I'm not saying every scrap of nature needs to be destroyed. I'm saying we're supposed to bring it all into the kingdom of heaven. All of it into a Garden of Eden. Now, we obviously can't complete this because of our sin now, right? But we should be doing what we can to get it done.
And that's all you should have.
Garden, children, right? All right.
Rosie, you're having a dream.
Oh, puppy
You're having
dreams.
a puppy dream.
Not the puppy dreams. Rosie,
Wake up, Papa.
come here.
Come here, puppy.
You want to say hi. All right. Well, let's get to the questions. Question 1. Have you, as a young man, felt the shame pushed on you by churchians for your natural desire to enact vengeance on the wicked?
Yes. Yes.
Now you know how I feel sometimes. Ponelas. Diogo, do you want to answer your question? I definitely felt this every time the excessive, like, you want in on this too? Did you hear that meow? Come here. Come here, you. No, you fell over. Come back. 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 Gato. Meow. Okay. So I always felt this as a kid because I always have had a strong urge.
What's in my seat?
You done, dog? And there was always this weird, as a kid, right? I never understood the difference between a judge, standard revenge. Like, what if a judge declares a man should be put to death? What's the difference between that and the family of the man putting the man to death? What is the real difference? The only difference is a practical need for society not to go down to like constant civil war and blood feuds. Totally understandable from a practical level. But you need to understand on a fundamental level that judge is just a man. And you need to hold him accountable. And if he's not held accountable, most men are going to take it, evil will take advantage of that. Even if you have a good judge or a few good judges to start with, eventually you're going to get one bad judge in there that the devil will take advantage of, and he'll start gathering more around him.
Have you read
just like
Good
himself.
Judges lately?
Not that kind of judge. So
Just kidding.
think about, man, I shouldn't harp on them again. I already harped on them in these rants. Think about, this is good. Just in businesses, this is kind of random, but HR departments, right? What do? Right. You have I'm sure HR departments at one point started out as a perfectly
not having blue hair
reasonable thing where you were making sure that no hinky things were happening and no one was being abused. And then you started getting those weirdos in there. And what do the weirdos do? They hire more weirdos, right? Then they take over the hiring process and they make sure everybody else is only hiring weirdos like them. And before you know it, the entire company is full of corrupt weirdos. And the company generally collapses because they're not about making money anymore. They're about making the weirdos happy. I
don't think that's a woman thing, isn't it? That the feminism started.
It did.
It feels like that because I don't think
it was like made back in the day when people were getting sued for things. Probably 1960s.
I never considered this before, but it's funny to think about.
Yeah.
Like
shit.
Like when the woman started it, and then they just made it worse and worse over the years. Like
to be fair, the women called for it, and then the men started it instead of slapping the women and saying, "Shut up." Yeah. Shut up.
I've been quiet a majority of the stream. I was stuffing my face with ginger, and I love you too.
Another child is up.
It's the same one that's up.
They tag team, I swear. Anyway.
I'll shut up so you can
we should go to the next question. I guess to end that thought, evil begets evil. Evil gathers evil around it. So if you have one bad apple, it's going to gather more bad apples around them.
It's like having rotting strawberries. One strawberry starts rotting.
Yeah, and they naturally gather evil around them. Sometimes I think it's a literal spiritual thing of them being oppressed, or suppressed, or even possessed by demonic entities. And guess what? The demons call to each other and say, "Hey, we can take over. Everyone come here." Right? It can also be, I imagine, less spiritually motivated. They just like people like themselves around themselves, so they hire people like themselves. That's natural enough.
Second-grade teachers.
Yeah. How many times have you seen a bunch of old ladies like take over a church group, for example, right? When they get into leadership, suddenly all the leadership is a bunch of old ladies, and they hang on to it like an iron.
You all have
iron gauntlet, right? Boomers too, right? Like when they get a hold of any leadership, they do not let go.
Versus boomer single woman.
Yeah, they do not let go for anything. Not a thing. And again, they always want to bring their own around. Now, some of that's just human nature, but again, I think there's a spiritual side to that as well. We shouldn't ignore the possibility that demons go, hey, I have some power here. Let's increase my power by bringing like-minded or like-possessed individuals around, or suppressed, controllable individuals into positions of power. It's just how evil works. Honestly, we should probably try that ourselves sometimes. Get, good people only hire people like you. Okay? Yeah, good. Now, question 2. All one has to do is look to nations such as feudal Japan to see examples of peoples. I already used that example. Yeah, overvalued the warrior and have done monstrous horrors that tend to become destructive nooses around their throats. How can we avoid becoming the Mongols as we fight the savage at the gates? Now, there's a little bit of the obnoxious churchian, like, if you kill a murderer, you're a murderer. No, you're an executioner, technically. But yeah, the point is, there is a way you can take things too far. There are plenty of atrocities committed by Christians, oddly enough, not just against foreigners, but against their fellow Christians. The entire Hussite rebellion, for example, was just the Hussites not wanting to be ruled by the Holy Roman Empire anymore, and the Holy Roman Empire using their influence in the Catholic Church to call a crusade against the Hussites. You know what the big spiritual difference was? The reason why the Pope decided that these people had to be massacred? That's right. They wanted to have different bread with their communion, as I understand it. There was like a different way they wanted to do communion, but they still had bread, they still had wine, and they still said all the same words. Oh, and their leader didn't like that one of the false popes, because this was an era where there were 2 popes fighting over things. One pope had used indulgences to pay for his army to fight the other pope. If you don't know what that is, that's when you pay money to them to bring your dead relative to heaven, basically.
Oh,
the Hussite leader didn't like that, and he was burned at the stake for it. Keep in mind that Pope lost that he was complaining about, but the Pope who still won still burnt him at the stake. That is the whole fucking conflict. And the Hussites were like, you know what? We're sick of this shit. We want independence from the Holy Roman Empire. That led to the crusade against the Hussites. That was the only difference. That is a taint upon crusades. That is disgusting on every level. And God was clearly with the Hussites for most of this conflict, because one of their leaders, for example, never lost a single battle. He didn't lose a single battle the entire time. He was a crazy dude. He was one-eyed. He was like, he had some other. He was like a one-eyed land pirate wife. He used these wagons in formation to stop the knights. He brought peasants together that started kicking these Roman dramatic knights' ass all the way through Sunday. And they did it by bringing their wagons together, and they'd create little forts on the battlefield, and they'd shoot cannons at them and guns and like pikes and flails. Yeah, they used flails. They actually used those things in combat, and they kicked a bunch of ass with them. The problem was, eventually, the Hussite rebellion turned against that general. He never lost a battle, but after he died, after they turned on him, I think they pettered out, and they might have even lost God's blessing because of some of the corruption of their ranks. And the Holy Roman Empire eventually took advantage of that. And so, no Hussites. The Hussites turned into other peoples, don't get me wrong, but there was never a Hussite kingdom as a result that they were trying to create. That, ladies and gentlemen, was a crusade you never heard about. Now, isn't it funny how everyone whines and complains about the Muslim crusade, right? The crusades against Islam, when those were a response to excessive slave trading and rape and murders and invasions. Like the south part of France, that population still hasn't recovered to the numbers it had before the Islamic slave raids. You all right over there? To this day. That's insane. That's how much people had to run from the coast to get away from the slave traders. And But all you ever hear about is, oh, there's nasty crusaders. They attack these other nasty people who've been invading and raping their women and stealing their children for their armies. That's what a janissary is, by the way. He's just a slave soldier, a Slav slave soldier. They were Slavs.
Huh.
There was a levy put upon all the people in like Hungary and all those areas where they had to give a certain amount of their sons. They had to be of like 7 to 10 years old, and they had to give a portion of their sons. And they were put through a death march, killing off all the weak ones. And then when they got there, they were slave soldiers who were indoctrinated and forced to fight. And that was a janissary. That's right, the backbone of the fucking Muslims, the most powerful Islamic army that ever was created, was just a bunch of white slaves killing other white boys. And they were so indoctrinated, by the way, that when a janissary became the sultan, the emperor. Is that
where the word genocide comes from?
It should be. Became emperor, he didn't destroy the system. But he did destroy most of the Ottoman Empire, set into place some of the things that would destroy the Ottoman Empire. Bull. Right? That still irks me to this day. But that is the Ottoman Empire in a nutshell. Here's all this cool stuff. We're going to steal it and say it was ours. Even the Arabs that were like really military minded and powerful, that were part of the Ottoman Empire, weren't Turkish. Now, they were the Turks who were a part of it, but the main ones were the naval guys. Those were more Moors and those kinds of guys. They're pirates and whatnot. Fascinating. Now, I'm not saying there weren't any powerful warrior Turks or whatever, but the point is that all of their stuff was like that, and that's what made them so dangerous, is that they would hire mercenaries from Europe. They would get all the weapons from Europe, and then they would turn it on Europe. Annoying. And of course, this shot them in the foot when Europe started really escalating their technology and weren't sharing it as much, shall we say. Which they did, but they didn't. And so after the Battle of Lepanto, they just couldn't keep up anymore. Lepanto. Lepanto is really interesting. That was the first battle where... Lepanto. Lepanto?
I had a joke in my head when you said that first.
Anyway.
It slipped away.
The point is, in that battle, that was like the first one where cannons were considered like the main point of destruction of the other ships. Like there were captains who literally cut off the rams on the front of their galleys. They would cut them off, and then they put their cannons on there, basically saying, "This is how we're going to fight. We're not ships. We're going to be shooting them with a bunch of cannons." We're not that.
Need more coffee?
Maybe. Interesting enough, I brought up the Hussite leader. There's one other, an admiral, a Korean admiral. I'm pretty sure he didn't lose any of these battles either.
I like giving you iced coffee. You go on these wonderful history stories.
Well, there's three like general admirals in my mind that they're all similar because they either didn't lose a battle or they only lost a few battles, and they pulled off incredible victories with overwhelming odds. And there's three of them that come to mind. I already brought up the Hussite guy whose name I can never pronounce. But if you look it up, he's the Hussite general who never lost a battle. He had one eye. There was the Eastern Roman Empire general who conquered the entirety of Italy and North Africa again, and fought back against the caliphates and all this. And in response, what he got for all his troubles? An emperor blinded him and made him a beggar. There's literally this famous painting of it's the scene where the great general's in the streets begging for food, and one of his soldiers sees him and is in abstract shock in the painting at his general, the great war leader, begging in the streets. Wow. And then they re-enlist him because an army comes and they get their asses kicked. Which is actually a fairly common trend in the Eastern Empire, which is funny. Funny enough, right? Again, like I talked about, the Hussites did something not as bad, but similar to the one-eyed guy. But one guy. He died, and they couldn't re-enlist him to save them again. But a similar pattern happened with this Korean admiral who was fighting the Japanese. Oddly enough, and also a technological thing here, similar to Lepanto, right? The Japanese ships, because Japan was very arms heavy, right? This was after their like major civil war, and the shogun had finally united all of Japan, but he had basically every clan had been so militarized that he had thousands and thousands of soldiers and samurai who suddenly didn't have a war to fight, which was a problem. So he went, well, we're going to invade Korea. we gotta give you guys something to do so you don't kill each other. I can't deny the logic. But yeah, they basically became the Mongols for a little while, is the best way to put it.
Just because they need something to do.
Pretty much. But there was he had clear signs that he wanted to conquer. It wasn't just Korea. He wanted to conquer China. Why not build roads? The Romans had that idea. Well, the answer is, remember that whole part about saying Japan took the warrior thing too far? You couldn't get a samurai to build a road. He would consider that very dishonorable. And he
would kill himself halfway through.
Or he'd kill you. It would be one of the two. Either you would have to die or he would die, right? It wasn't like in Rome where the soldiers were considered engineers. So they would be whatever Rome needed, right? It was high-minded warrior culture of the knight variety, but knights were still more practical in some ways.
I don't do mornings.
Though a lot of these soldiers were Ashkenaz or peasant soldiers in a lot of ways. They weren't all samurai. The vast majority would be peasants with guns.
So they can't get the peasants.
People have this right after this period. They were all using guns on each other. They had arquebuses and stuff.
Right.
They had bought them from the Portuguese. The Koreans had guns. They had guns. But their navy, because the Japanese had been so internally focused for so long, was really underdeveloped.
Literally internally
Seppuku. Anyway, they were still focused on boarding enemy vessels because their strong point was their infantry, right? Their melee, getting in the melee. That's what they were always focused with the Navy. But the Koreans had the turtle ship, if you've ever played Age of Empires.
I learned this in school.
And they were much more concentrated on cannons and blowing the crap out of it, right? The problem was all of their admirals sucked except for one. One admiral was actually pretty good. So there was this whole time period where the Japanese had gotten onto the mainland because all the other admirals sucked. Okay, there was this moment where they burned the fleet instead of going out to attack the Japanese fleet. And you're like, what? You're not even going to put up a fight? You're just going to burn the fleet and run? Right, and this was in the province that was farther away from this admiral's province, right? Because he had a province. This whole time he saw the Japanese preparing, while the rest of Korea was basically a corrupt nightmare scape where they were just being weirdos and backstabbing each other. He was preparing his province for war because he saw the Japanese invasion. They were literally warning them that they were going to do it. Basically, surrender now or we're going to come. And the Koreans didn't take them seriously. But this admiral, he's like, they're coming. I'm going to get ready for this. And his fleet was the only one that didn't get annihilated. And he won every single fight. And it got to the point where the Japanese were losing every single naval engagement, but they were winning every single armed land engagement in the peninsula itself. But they were having trouble with logistics, obviously, because they couldn't get the stuff from Japan to Korea because of this Korean admiral fucking up their fleet constantly. But there was political intrigue in the Korean court that excommunicated that admiral. Guess what happened next? They lost the entire fleet he protected, right? But then they called him back, and he, with a smaller fleet he didn't prepare, defeated the Japanese again, saving Korea. That's crazy. That guy was nuts. That guy, those three generals / admirals,
everyone else to put to shame.
the betrayal, and then brought back and saved their people again. Like in some ways, though, like especially the Korean guy, like I respect him for doing it because the Japanese
Like, get out. We
were
don't want you.
even
Oh, wait, come back. We want you.
like at this period, they were almost worse than Imperial Japan when they conquered a place. Like they were thought of as like the worst in Korea. The nightmarish stuff they did to everyone was horrific, to say the least. And again, right, the Koreans were so corrupt and inept in their defense. If it wasn't for this guy, they would have been annihilated. But like on some level, I'm like, I feel for all the people, but he should have just become dictator at that point. He should have used his influence and said, "Nope, we're cutting this dynasty off, bitches. It is now mine." And I 100%, I've come to the conclusion that I actually think Washington was weak for not becoming king. 100%. You know what would have stopped like 90% of the crap we've dealt with is if Washington became king and his son started to deal with all these freaks in Congress and all these weird satanic groups and stuff that would have been vying for controlling them, right? They would have been in conflict with them almost assuredly. Because they, being people with children and trying to keep their kingdom growing and not just trying to be imperial freaks, right, would have had an invest interest in making sure that the United States grew as a proper nation and didn't do destructive things like call in excessive amount of immigrants to conquer the South, which was the start of many of our problems, shall we say, or wouldn't be playing favorites in Congress, like wouldn't let Congress be forcing the South to destroy its industry in favor of Northern industry, which happened in a number of different laws, because you'd be going, hey, I want to make just as much money selling cotton as I want to make off the industry in the North. Shut up, you Northern fucks, and Southern folks, it's come fucks and build more shit down there. So when you do, I need more cannons. Not saying it would have been all like, roses and happiness and bees and trees and all that. Okay, there would have been issues. This is a fallen world, but imagine the legacy lived on from Washington that would have said, okay, when people are stupid enough, yeah, you should probably just become king.
It would have been interesting. Andrew Jackson was the king and then have his kids.
Yeah. Wouldn't it be interesting if the legacy of Andrew Jackson had lived on?
Yeah.
We talked about this with the kings in the Israel's split kingdom and whatnot. There would be periods where the Israelites would be, or the Judah would be with God. And then there would be periods where the kings would fall away. But unlike the judge periods, they would be longer. Like, the judge, it would be his life, and then they would instantly fall again afterwards.
That's true.
In the king stage, whether the king was evil or good, they would stay with that for a number of generations until another... it's not legacy. What's the term when you start a new line of kings? It's a new line of kings. No. It's similar to legacy, but it's like...
Lineage?
Yeah, we'll go with lineage. Fine. Basically starting a new... It starts with an M.
Monarchy.
No, not monarchy, because that's like the position of king. It's like when your son becomes king and his son becomes king. What the fuck is... That's female shit, woman.
You forgot. Patriarch is the male.
Whatever, it's not that important. But the point is, a new family on the throne, if you will, that would change things. A new family would come on the throne, and then they would either be following God or following this, or be somewhere in the middle, and they'd be like that for a generation or two.
M?
Yes, I'm pretty sure it starts with an M. No, D. It's dynasty. Dynasty. It starts with a D. Dynasty. Sorry about that. M. Where did I get M? Anyway. Awkward. So, right. Again, wouldn't it have been nice if there was a Washington dynasty that pushed for not getting involved in European wars and concentrating on the Americas and maybe purging some freaks? Obviously, the purging would be too hopeful. He was too connected, right? But because Washington was such a idealist, or more exactly, either part of it or propagandized into being an idiot, rather than taking control of Congress and slapping them around like his officers wanted them to do and were right to want him to do, by the way. We have this twisted version of our heads that, oh, king's bad. No, bad king's bad. Just like bad Congress bad. It's not complicated. It's ironic that in the very movie that's like the propaganda for Revolutionary War, we have the exact line that proves my point, right? What is it before Mel Gibson decides to join the war? Right, he's in the little thing, and they say, "Why? I don't want to serve a tyrant." And he stands up and goes, "Why should I trade one tyrant 10,000 miles away for 10,000 tyrants 10 miles away?" And what do we have but fucking thousands of tyrants but a few miles away? In some ways, oligarchy is even more of a pain in the ass.
Go away from me, please.
Because, yeah, I mean, there's no perfect government method, but if we go for the ones that had the longest longevity, there's like this power play between the nobles, the king, and the people, and one or the other will often work against each other. That's Venice, Sparta. Those are the ones that last the longest. Also, Spartans were not gay, by the way. That is just propaganda that even Vox kind of brought up jokingly, and I want to slap around. No, they were not gay. Stop. Okay? Stop it. It's really annoying whenever I see it. Like this guy on YouTube really breaks it down great. Basically, the entire thing about the Greek gay thing, you know where that comes from? Pottery. And that's it. There was like 3 or 4 pots discovered that showed pedophilia. Similar to, say, like if United States collapsed and somebody digs up Podesta or Epstein's old house and finds various paintings and paraphernalia depicting pedophilia and pederasty, they could suddenly declare that the United States was cool with pedophilia. Obviously, it wasn't. There was just some weird rich people out there who used their power and influence to escape the law and escape all of us angry, bald men in our corner over here. But like, the Greeks had a similar problem. It was not considered a positive thing. In fact, the one guy on YouTube, hilariously enough, brought up the fact that they would rape a man with a turnip as punishment for being gay. Yeah, it was like a humiliation ritual. Awkward. It would just not be positive. Like, yeah.
Did they use
Probably. I assume it was not meant to be pleasant. And they were using that specifically as a, humiliation and targeting specifically what that idiot was doing. It was also viewed, the type of gay person was like, it was literally like how in our culture we say, "You're such a fag, you're a weak femboy." They did that. They called the Persians fags, essentially. Like turnip gay boys is what they called them, essentially. Okay? They were very similar to us in their feelings towards fags. But they find a few pots and suddenly they're totally cool with pedophilia and homosexuality. No, they weren't. That's just the modern pedophiles and fags who put themselves into everything. Like, I hate Abraham Lincoln, but the man was not a fag. Stop it. He did a lot of other horrible things, but he wasn't a fag. And you know what the only justification for that was? Oh, he slept in a bed with a man once. That's what they did because, you know what? People weren't fags back then, so you could actually sleep in the same bed at a hostel and not have sex with him. What? Yeah, there was such lack of homosexuality in the culture back then that you could share a bed and it would just be you're sharing a bed because there's not enough beds in the hotel for everybody. That's all it was. It's only gay in our heads because our culture's become so fucking gay. That's it. And again, I hate Abraham Lincoln, but he wasn't gay. Like Ishmael. Yeah, exactly. Wait, what is it? Ishmael and Queequeg?
Queequeg.
I don't actually. I know which Ishmael are we talking about? Because I'm going like Bible Ishmael right now. I don't know these references, but new references. I'm curious.
From Moby Dick.
Oh, yeah, okay. Sorry, I always thought Moby Dick was really boring. There's It's coming back to me now. I kind of blocked Moby Dick. There's a scene where the way they meet is he's sleeping in a hostel, and the other guy who rented the other side of the bed comes in, and that's how he meets his friend.
Oh.
And the whole scene is kind of funny in the movie because he like has all these tattoos and things.
Quick, a South Pacific is a harpooner.
Yeah, that becomes his friend. Sorry,
friendship.
I remember trying to watch the movie of Moby Dick once and just checking out. I know it's great literature for most people. I need to actually read it and see if it's as bad as I remember as a kid. But I'm pretty sure I'll be pretty bored. But I should probably do it. I know the symbology of hunting the whale and it consuming you and destroying your life and blah blah blah. Very boring novel. 15 chapters of how to row your boat. row your boat. But yes, a great example in that novel. Right. It's amazing when homosexuality is suppressed, the amount of things that just aren't gay. Because it's not even entering anyone's brain. Wild. God, I hate those modern homos. They're the worst. It's just an obnoxious thing they do where they're trying to say that every intelligent person ever was gay. But if that were the case, we wouldn't be smart.
You know what nowadays?
What?
They're autistic.
Ooh. I think I'd prefer to be autistic than gay myself. But the point I'm bringing up with that is right, the obnoxiousness with it is if that were true, right, then we as a race would have been getting dumber this whole time because gay people don't have a lot of children. And if your smart people don't have children, you have this brain drain effect where your generations become dumber over time. Worse is when they say J. Edgar was gay. Yeah, I know. God. Oh, man. Or they get uppity when you point out actual freaks out there that they don't want to be associated with. Like which guy was it? There was the guy who wore heels who was a president, and they don't want him. Yeah, that was a freak. I wonder if that was what he was talking. No, it wasn't Hoover. Similar time period, though. A bunch of freaks.
Have you had the third question now?
Oh, I should go to the third question. I'm pittering out. So before I start another tangent, I should. Arch, did I answer the second question?
You did.
How can we avoid? Okay. How we can avoid it is we can actively invest in the arts and the crafts and everything. As men of war, we should respect the tools of the man of peace. That is the philosophical goal. In a practical term, you keep the control over the reins of propaganda and art, and you don't allow the evil influences in. Probably regular purges are necessary, but you also need that within the warrior man's ranks as well, because they'll get those freaks in there that want to go all Mongol. They always pop up. You know, as bad. Oh no, I'm starting another tangent. As bad as Disney films and stuff around them are, they do a good job of portraying archetypes, and I like that. For example, he's a Hun, not a Mongol, but in the Mulan movie, the villain is a great archetype for the Mongol savage, right? You go in there, and what his whole motivation is lined up in the first scene where he's invading the Great Wall of China, and the sentry, through great sacrifice, makes it up to warn everyone and set off the torch. You know, it's like the beacons were under attack, right? And he's staring right at the Han guy, and he's like, "Now all of China knows you're here." And the guy just burns the Chinese flag in front of him and goes, "Perfect. I want to fight." He wants to fight. The wall was a challenge. I came, you challenged me. Let's go, baby. The whole point is that negative masculinity of utter destruction for stupid reasons. Like, your mom, okay, I'm going to kill all of your children now, right? You know, that negative savage mentality. Taking things too far, shall we say.
Third question.
Oh, I was going to go to other negative male stereotypes put into Disney films. But sure, you know.
No, you can go ahead.
Or Sea Hag, great example of the second grade teacher types we're talking about. The old ladies who just want to destroy everyone's love life, right? They hate. They're. What better picture than a fat octopus lady for feminists, right? It's perfect. Perfect. And they didn't even mean to do it, you know? There's a reason why there was that whole movement in feminist circles to try to make every single Disney villainess the good guy, because they saw themselves. Their solipsism told them, oh, that's me on screen. That must be the hero.
What's hilarious is seeing how the villains, the female villains, used to be pretty and all. And then all of a sudden that sea hag was right there. Like,
well, well, to be fair, I have to push back a little bit.
I know a little bit, but
because the one bitch was always really ugly, the one that turned into a dragon.
Well, yeah, but still.
If you're going with the evil queen, she was supposed to. Which ones are supposed to be pretty wife? Because the evil queen was the only pretty one. I mean, because you got Cruella de Vil. Ooh,
no,
that's
I'm
not
thinking
pretty.
no.
Yeah, you got Melissa in it. Ooh, we're not doing very good on the wolf.
I was.
Hang on, do we have one other female? The evil stepmother and her stepdaughters.
I take it back.
Woof, woof, woof.
I take
If I may. Hardcore wolf. Ah!
You know what I mean? They were skinnier, and then there's this fat thing. That kind of ugly.
Well, the butt on the stepsisters were pretty fat, to be fair. Maybe that was just
They had those hoop skirts that look like
hoop skirts.
look like hot air balloons.
They could float away on those, that's for sure.
They tried with Mary Poppins.
But
you know what I mean? They all used to be skinny, and there was one that she was like only fat. That's what I meant by ugly.
The queen of fat shaming again.
Does that make sense?
I guess, but no, at the same time, yes. But yes, that archetype of the
like Cruella de Vil. Cruella de Vil looks gaunt.
Yes, that's because she's supposed to look like a
from
vampire.
Gaunt to fat.
Yes. By the way, if you haven't, rewatch 101 Dalmatians. It was based on a novel, and Cruella de Vil is literally the feminist. She represents feminism, and she her whole arc is she hates the fact that the one dude's wife decided to become a stay-at-home mom. That's her whole motivation. Right. The only reason why she stole their puppies was because she wanted revenge on her. That was the whole point.
Find a way to.
Like, she didn't need them. That was the thing. Her whole plan falls apart because of this needless revenge. Remember, if you look at it, right, they get to this point where there's all those other puppies, right? And they were bought. She just bought them out of pet stores. And none of the pet stores thought it weird that someone was buying all of the Dalmatians in Britain. But hey, whatever. Money, I guess. But because she had to steal those puppies as revenge against her favorite employee who betrayed her by becoming a proper woman, she decided to get a revenge, and that led to the complete destruction of her plot. I love it. I love it. It's great. Cat, what are you doing?
It's attacking my foot.
Meow, meow. You know what? If you have an orange tabby kitten, I'm naming him Mr. Tibbs in honor of 101 Dalmatians kitty cat. I need to find him a girlfriend now so I can have him Mr. Tibbs. We already named him O'Neill, so anyway, we'll get to the third question now. Our children will take our examples and run farther than men from weakened generations like our own could imagine. How should we encourage them to their task while bringing all of the body of Christ to bear on our enemies? You know what? That's kind of a rewording of question 2, to be honest. But asking for more practical stuff. So part of what I'm talking about here is the average man, especially midwits, can't handle nuance, right? You try to say something like, you know what, not all of Islam was bad. There were some good parts to it, blah, blah, blah. You know what the midwit hears in that thing? oh, Islam is perfect. Islam is good. We encourage Islam and never all things. Or Buddhism, there's some good sides of Buddhism. We encourage Buddhism. We put Buddhism, put Buddhist symbols in our houses and all the rest, and invite all the spirits. No, that's the problem. That's the problem. Is the average man can't handle the nuance. Just because there's some positive aspects doesn't mean you bring it all into your house. Does that make sense? Just because there were a couple of good Persians out there that invented the great farming doesn't mean you want Islam next door, right? Just because Dalai Lama had some good lines doesn't mean you should put Buddhist symbols in your house that might be inviting certain spirits around you, right? It's not a hard thing, right?
That's
But-
what I learned about the.
Unfortunately, people can't take nuance. So if you're too tolerant of certain beliefs, and we brought this up in personal thing, your children will take that all the way. And they'll go, well, if this one thing is okay about them, then everything must be okay about them. And it's not going to be like that exact intensity. It'll be like steps, a slippery slope. But you'll get to a generation, or maybe it'll even be one generation that just goes, oh, this must be fine too. And why? What do you mean? I don't see a problem with Satanists, blah, blah, blah. Right. It's my sister right now. Don't get me started about that shit. But on that front, with this question, we should be thinking about that balance of encouraging our kids to run for examples, but be able to bring that pendulum swing back so that they still have a hold on their arts and they still create beautiful things and keep art pushing towards heaven. Keep it looking towards heaven. Like, what was the best paintings in history ever made? Were Christians looking to heaven, making biblical stuff. You know, it's really interesting. When you know some of the symbologies, right? You learn that a lot of the things that like artists have been whining about were because they were referencing evil in their paintings. And that's why the church took umbrage. For example, there was some YouTube short or whatever I watched talking about one painting that was almost led to like the execution of its painter because at first it was like, oh, because of blah blah blah, and trying to make it seem like it was crazy. But if you looked at the painting, there was clear references, symbolic references, basically calling the current pope a demon or something, particularly attaching it to the demon Lilith, using the imagery of owls and some other stuff around that guy. Basically, it was a straight up, this person is demonic or this person is of the devil in their painting. Little wonder that person took a little umbrage with that, right? You know, that's a very poignant statement that could lead to, you know, burnings. It shouldn't be made lightly. A lot of the times, the great, you know, painters and stuff that are like all getting their panties in a twist about, oh, they suppressed me. We're being assholes 90% of the time. Van Gogh, he never finished a damn painting in his life. Okay, I'm sorry. I'm sick of all these people pretending that Van Gogh was this amazing artist. Okay, he made some cool ideas, but he never finished a single one of his damn paintings. And that's what every single normal person said when they saw his paintings. They went, this is great, but come back when he finished it, when he added the details. Why is it all blurry and goopy? What's the point of that shit? This is the beginning crap you do before you add in all the details. It is. It is literally that. The man was lazy and didn't finish his paintings and tried to claim it was style. And everyone bought it after he died, thank God, but everyone bought it. I get too passionate about random things like that, to be fair. The problem with Van Gogh, though, is it's like rubbed in my face constantly. If I see another reference to the Starry Night, like no one's ever created a painting of fucking stars before.
Likes that painting.
It's because she's a woman in the Gen X generation, okay?
So
Boomer Gen X,
why are they
they're
drawn
just
to it?
It's because they don't actually understand art. They're just, this is the painting that women of that generation is supposed to like, so they like it. That's all it is. It's because it's the thing they're supposed to like.
There's nothing appealing to it.
Well, there's plenty of appealing. It's a beautiful star thing. But what I'm pointing out is others have made better paintings of similar subjects and, you know, finished their painting. And so why? Why is Van Gogh then used as? And this is important though. Actually, artist history is important because it shows you the propaganda at work and the shifts in the way of thinking and culture. Van Gogh not finishing his paintings and people putting him on a pedestal as this wonderful artist. Trust me, I'm Dutch. I want to like Dutch artists, but I have to slap ourselves around for that.
It's a fine picture of an iceberg.
But the point is, that was the start. Impressionism is what led to modern art. You say, how does that work? Impressionism was when you decided painting. They needed that to be able to get where a toilet is art. Right? Most
Can I just bring in toilet toothpaste?
Yes, you can. All right. You literally have feminists like shake. Like I remember,
oh gosh,
she put paint eggs filled with paint, plastic eggs, up her vagina and shook it in front of everybody while buck ass naked. Don't know. It was certainly meant to represent that onto a canvas in front of her. Thank God. Yes, but the canvas at her feet wasn't covered.
I thought it was
right, and
that was their blood that they were painting with.
It's probably that too. That was art. To get there, you need Van Gogh. Without Van Gogh, you can't get there. And I know a lot of people will say, "Oh, that's great." No, this is slippery slope. Once you introduce that it doesn't have to follow form and reality, and it's more about what you feel, and it's not about finishing the painting, it's not about making it actually structurally sound or detailed or anything like that, right? Once you make the merit of a painting less about skill and the subject of the painting and all that, you make that all a sideshow, then you're opening the door to postmodern and modern art, which is the destruction of the soul of a nation, because now you're celebrating the chaos of basically it's moral relativism in art form. It's all it is. It's pushing moral relativism and probably some money laundering, if we're all honest. Actually, definitely pushing money laundering. Hey, suddenly my toilet's worth $20 million. Don't look at my drug deals over here, guys. But yes, and it's tied to the cultural references of the time, and it often pushes it. You can see the pushes in culture lining up with the different artistic styles. It's true. And it's most stark in reality when you look at modern and postmodern art, because moral relativism has taken complete control. Thus, beauty is what we... Shut up, Doc. Beauty is away from what God declares as beautiful. Then we just declare whatever we want is beautiful. See how that works? That's why it is expressly negative and ugly. And the few works and sculptures that actually look like something are made to look disgusting and ugly, or be about something disgusting and nasty. And the whole point is moral relativism. The whole point is we are gods, and we decide what is beautiful, not what God has made and what he decides is beautiful. And that's why you can ignore people like, I forget who he was. What was it? Some dude who I liked a lot of the stuff he was talking about on the internet, but he was defending modern art because he's an idiot. Smart in other ways, but he's an idiot. And say, oh, some of them are outside political thought. No, they're not, because the very essence of what they're doing is an anathema to Christianity and to anyone who has a moral bone in their body. Anyone who declares that God is God and we are not God, and thus we do not just declare morality. Anyone who... How did I structure that sentence? The point is, if you don't call yourself God and you follow God and say God declares what is beautiful and art is a way to express that beauty, if you're that, then you have to hate modern art, because modern art and postmodern art is man declares what is beautiful, and we can declare a toilet is beautiful, and thus it is. And that's why it's expressly ugly and meant to be ugly, because it's a mockery of God and saying we get to decide what's beautiful now. So it's picking things that are purposely ugly. And I can get passionate. But this is part of the thing. This is why the man of war cannot ignore the home front. This is why you can't let artists go crazy, and you have to weed out the satanic ones in your midst and slap around the lazy ones like Van Gogh, because they will use the lazy ones. They will use the possessed ones like freaking Picasso, 100% possessed. That guy, right? There's this period where no one likes his paintings. And then he does something freaky. And then the next thing you know, he makes a crappy painting and everybody loves it, even though it's crap and ugly.
Definitely a ticket.
Right. It's ugly. And then it becomes a piece of propaganda. And then what happens after that? Well, that's right. He's miserable and he hates himself. And he's always talking about killing himself, even though he's rich and famous now and all the rest. What is that? Imposter syndrome. The man sold his soul to get famous or something. Might not have been his soul. A lot of people don't know that it's not always your soul, but we shouldn't talk about that too much. And yeah, so you can't ignore this because art will push cultures forward. It can reflect the modern culture and it can push the culture in a certain direction. Again, we can connect it to a lot of different stuff. For example, before they started attacking the morality and modesty, there were paintings like one that should have, in my opinion, led to the arrest, if not the banishment, or probably banishment. Banishment would have been the right move, because if you straight up killed the artist, then all the artists go, "Ah!" And basically what he did was he made a painting where all the men were clothed and there was one naked woman amongst them. You've probably seen it in art class, right? And the whole point was modesty. They were mocking modesty with that painting, and everyone rightly got up in arms about that, because it's one thing if everyone's kind of naked, then that's kind of the theme, right? Then you're going with some of the classical Greek stuff. Maybe they got flowy robes, or maybe their clothes are, or they're like in a shipwreck and they're not worried about modesty right now, right? And everyone's in the same boat. To have one character, specifically the woman, being naked with all clothed men was clearly a statement of attack on the modesty laws and rules, and not even laws, just the morality of the day, which was women shouldn't be naked in front of men. And it was a clear statement. And the fact that that's the painting that gets to be famous, right? That's the painting that they make all the little art students learn about and say, oh, it's free thinking. No, it's an attack on morality. And that's the point of it. It's mundane enough that they can declare it's not an attack on morality, but it is an attack on morality. Just like the hidden owl in that painting, which was clearly connecting that one pope or something to a demonic entity who's referenced by owls. Remember that owl god in Bohemian Grove with the burning eyes that the leaders of the world have been sacrificing to? That demon is what that painting's referencing. Wow, I didn't think I'd get into art history in this stream. Well, how about that?
History, been into U.S. history, military history, art history.
It's because it's all connected.
It is.
And it all reflects each other. And this is one thing also. You shouldn't think that one aspect of the culture rules all the other aspects. Art, like I said, reflects and pushes. It's like a tug and pull. Sometimes it's pushing it forward. Sometimes it's tugging it another way. Sometimes it's just reflecting and it's along for the ride, if that makes any sense. And so what you got to be careful for is outside forces or even internal forces being influenced by outside, even spiritual demonic forces, trying to push your culture in a specific direction by attacking things like your modesty with paintings like I just described, with books like The Scarlet Letter.
Oh, gosh.
Right? That is a horrible fucking book. There's no reason why we would all be forced to read that damn book unless they wanted the propaganda in that book, i.e., Christians are a bunch of hypocrite assholes, and people who have affairs are the most moral people ever for some stupid reason. And also, your children.
That's a whole list books.
And also a push towards abortion, with the child literally being an evil demonic child. Right? Otherwise, the Scarlet Letter would not have been pushed, because it is legitimately a bad book. But because it is attacking Christianity and it's attacking American history, particularly moral history, the Pilgrims, right? You know why the Pilgrims, and specifically the who were they? The Puritans were under such attack, is because they weren't part of the paradigm that would create the United States, right? They weren't part of the in crowd. They were pushed off course. They had their own separate city on a hill that was much more moral than, say, the Philadelphia crowd that would pop up, the Washington crowd, the group of, shall we say, Masonic order freaks. They weren't part of that. So they had to be tarred and feathered and made to be the anathema of our culture. So we would never go that direction again. Basically, it's simplified, but the Red Letter and the Salem witch trials, the way it's portrayed, is basically a tar and feathering of the Puritans, who were against demonic activity, against being, crazy and unmodest and all this other stuff. And, people say, oh, they wanted to outlaw Christmas. No, they wanted to outlaw it's this other holiday that's connected to the Christ Mass that became called Christmas, not modern Christmas. They would have liked modern Christmas. I know that kind of breaks people's minds. Modern Christmas, not even like the 1990s modern Christmas, if you will, the concentration on family, on everyone concentrating on Jesus Christ, like that part, they would have loved it. What they hated was the old Christmas, which was connected to a pagan holiday, which was much more like Halloween, except even more intense, much more drunkenly, much more parties. That's why all the Germans were drunk, right? That's, when George Washington crosses the Delaware, they weren't celebrating the Christmas you think of. They were celebrating that old Christmas that was actually a tarnishing of the Christ Mass.
Say, Boniface.
Boniface was part of the new Christmas that came
Christmas,
around. Okay,
okay.
that they
Well,
used
so
the
what was
Christmas tree and the symbology of Saint Boniface. Oak's Christmas was a different holiday that was on the same week of the Christ Mass. They put it in the same week, all right, to try to distract from this holiday, which was essentially a Halloween on steroids. The main feature of it was poor people would go to rich people's homes, and if they didn't let them in and eat all their food, they would They would do horrible pranks on them, and there was a lot of demonic activity around.
Okay.
And so the Puritans rightly went, we don't want this holiday around us. It's evil. And it was, right? Christmas later, thanks to things like the Scrooge guy, that character, right? And the push towards stronger Christianity, ironically, a push towards more Puritan ways of thinking, pushed people towards family, changed Christmas to be the anti-devil, the positive Christ-focused one that we saw for a brief period of time. Like, think about, I love bringing this up to people. Like, even Hollywood couldn't get away from this. What were all the old Christmas movies about? If you didn't,
home for Christmas,
family.
they
It was
had to
always
make
about
it there.
family. And it was, if you weren't with family, you were a loser. You could be the richest man in the
You were
world.
pretty much mocked.
Yeah.
Being around family.
Think about Jingle All the Way, one of the silliest, stupidest movies with Arnold Schwarzenegger, right?
Oh, is that the one that they like?
Yeah, my kids love that movie. Right, in that, right, he's business tycoon. He's getting all the sales. There's all this partying around him in their business.
He's trying to get
talk
that
about
toy
it,
for his son.
right? But he's thought of as a loser till he comes around and forces himself to be there for his son. Right? Even Hollywood couldn't get around that, right? And so they concentrated on Halloween, All Hallows Eve, which used to be something more positive, but got a lot of negative influences and became the witches' holiday, if you will. You should never trust somebody who celebrates Halloween thoroughly, like with all the different decorations and all that crap, and leaves it up and doesn't celebrate Christmas, that doesn't put up a lot of holiday stuff. Like, this is why the war on Christmas happened, is because it was a change. God took the devil's holiday, the holiday that the devil was using to sully the Christ Mass, and made it the ultimate anti-evil holiday. It's all about Christ. It's all about family, right? What was that original thing in our very first lesson? Be fruitful, multiply. It's all of the commands right there. The Christmas tree, as my wife brought up, was Boniface. Saint Boniface, the first Christmas tree. He goes in with a group of Christians to a Germanic tribe who is about to sacrifice a slave boy to Thor under an oak tree. And he goes in, and they're so shocked he's there, they don't stop him, and he cuts down their great oak tree to Thor right in front of their faces, and they don't stop him because they're just so surprised that he's willing to do it. And probably a little bit of expecting Thor to strike him down, but he doesn't because God's with him. And they plant an evergreen tree in place of the oak, basically representing Christ, because the tree never fades, it never loses its leaves, it's always great. The first Christmas tree was literally a symbol against human sacrifice. It is the best, beautiful holiday. It is the ultimate slap you in the face. It's why they hate it so much, and they've degraded it any way they can. It's why they've turned so many of even our people against Christmas. My own uncle's like this. It pisses me off on every level. The fact that he can it's that half-true thing. As I brought up, that other holiday existed. It's the holiday that those weird Germans, the German mercenaries, what were those guys? I forget. The guys that George Washington attacked while crossing the Delaware, right? That they were celebrating, right? That one is not the same one as the one that stopped all the fighting in World War One. So the Puritans wanted to get rid of essentially Halloween, right? That's what they wanted to get rid of. Who could blame them? What have they turned Halloween into but the devil's holiday these days? And it pisses me off that people don't see that, and they still like. I know you want to let your kids have fun trick or treating. I get it. I don't, but you need to come up with a different holiday, all right? Same time period, maybe a week later. Maybe everyone has to dress up like crusaders or something. The point is, dressing up often in ancient cultures was thought of as embodying the thing you're dressing up as. And when you're dressing up as demons, you're dressing up as monsters that represent demons in a lot of cultures, and thus the symbol that are getting their attention. And then you party, and then you have lots of sex and lots of sin, and then you bring it all in together. You're inviting all that shit in. And I can't be the only one to have noticed that Halloween has become less and less about kids and more about the party.
Like, it's annoying too. It's like nowadays a lot of adults go trick-or-treating to get their Jell-O shots. Yeah. To get their little snippet of alcohol. Like,
even when I was a kid, right, it used to be a kind of a concentration. Like, my family never really celebrated it, but we had the lame Christian version, if you know what I mean. I went trick-or-treating once. That was a fun experience.
I did it once as a kid at a church, the trunk or treats.
Yeah.
My mom didn't really want me to do that anyway. I just was there for the candy.
Yeah.
Now that I see it, I'm like, yeah. But the fact that churches are doing that too.
Well, and they're doing it all wrong. Like, people understand, Christianity is great for co-opting holidays, but you know how they did it is they actually changed the holiday, right? If you're just celebrating the pagan holiday, then you're just celebrating a pagan holiday. You actually have to change the traditions, or you're just celebrating with demons. That's all you're doing. Like I brought up, the Christmas change is so fundamental and Christ-centered that you can't deny it. Like, and all the pagan elements from the Christmas celebration was slowly getting weeded out by the time we were kids anyway. The Yule log. Who actually does a Yule log anymore? Who did a Yule log when you were a kid? Chestnuts on an open fire. Who still does that? No one. You know what a Yule log is?
No.
So
I know what a eulogy is.
Well, a Yule log was this thing where you would like keep a fire going constantly. So you'd have like an entire tree, and you would slowly push it into the fire for like a week.
Log.
Yule log. And it had spiritual and it's spiritual. The other one, the one you're supposed to kiss under, mistletoe, that was already disappearing when I was a kid. People rarely do that for obvious creepers around them. Right? But what are the things that stay that they can't get rid of? star imagery, Jesus Christ, the manger scene, the Christmas tree to against human sacrifice to dark entities, right? All that stuff stayed, and they couldn't get rid of it. They commercialized a lot of it, but they couldn't get rid of it. Oh, it's getting late.
And now they're banning people from even saying Merry Christmas.
Well, they tried. That failed miserably. Good times. But anyway. And this is something else. Like maybe someday, and my goal would be nice when things
stop drooling.
Things go through their political collapse and everything.
Stop.
We could one day co-op Halloween, but it will probably change a lot and probably be called something different. I think that I think that's just necessary given the nature of the holiday, and just be eclipsed by this other one. But that doesn't mean the devil's holiday would go away. He would create a new one. He would twist another one. Horrifically, he could try to take Christmas again. So you would have to keep your guard up and encourage your children to keep the proper traditions. Otherwise,
this is why traditions are important.
Yeah,
it literally is.
It's also what people get wrong about tradition is a tradition helps you, but it's not the tradition isn't the point. The tradition is a tool, and once you live for the tool, right? My hammer helps me hammer in a nail, right? I don't exist for the hammer. The hammer exists for the nail getting hammered in. You taking this sexually?
No.
I don't know about you right now. It's past midnight. You're losing your mind. Right? Look, for example, Jesus Christ makes this very clear when he says, Sabbath was made for man. Man was not made for the Sabbath. The point being, traditions are important, but they're not supposed to get between you and God. They're not supposed to get between you and what's necessary. Like his great example was, which one of you, if your kid fell in a well on the Sabbath, wouldn't pull him out because it would be considered work? None of them. You would pull him out of the well. That's the point, right? Likewise, your traditions are supposed to serve man. You're not supposed to serve the traditions, right? So when you're making your traditions, remember that important little aspect. Remember to encourage them to always be reminding people for what these holidays are for and why they're there, and why you should be worried about certain aspects. We should be worried. The devil seemed to like this weird thing about going up to people's houses and demanding treats and demanding things, and then if you don't get them, playing tricks on them, and then the creepy visions and all the rest.
Yeah, it makes me think of Amos.
Yeah. And then
it's a game who's been denied.
Yeah. And also the dressing up. Like all pagan religions have the dressing up of pagan gods. And most of them have this mentality that when you dress up as that god, you are being embodied or possessed by that god during the ritual. And again, if most gods are demonic entities or even high, as Paul called them, principalities of darkness, that literally could be the case in a high enough ritual. The person getting possessed by that entity for that ritual, or being at least used upon. So a lot of people, if temple prostitutes in the Bible and the Hindu culture, right, the whole point of them was they were married to the god or they were being possessed by the god. So when someone had sex with them, they were having sex with that god, creating sex magic. That was the point. Likewise, with these rituals, when you danced around dressed up as the god, you were giving your body over to that god to then infuse the ritual for the group. Thus, open yourself up to possession. So, if you're dressing up like Frankenstein or a vampire or something, you are inviting entities of vampiric natures into yourself and maybe your house or maybe around you. Now, obviously, the more prayed up you are, the less likely that's going to work. But why do you want to bring those things around? Now, obviously, every time you dress up doesn't necessarily mean you're doing that. But clearly, with all the ritualistic, satanic stuff around Halloween and the witchcraft concentrated on it, you dressing up and being around, and there's a good chance that in your neighborhood, there is someone doing an actual ritual, even if they're just doing it for a lark. The demons, the devils, they don't give a shit if you're not serious.
Like,
they'll take you seriously.
Like even like family carnival stuff, whatever.
Yeah.
The event they had, it wasn't even Halloween time.
Yeah.
They had
Mm-hmm. It's funny. That little thing I just did. My son did it for a long time, and it made people think he was autistic. It was hilarious. Still does. It's rare though now. He does some of my other mannerisms. He's been picking up on more.
He's picking up more mannerisms.
Yeah. It was funny though. After that one lady called him autistic and all the rest, and then
you mean that librarian?
Yeah,
that even a librarian. Whatever.
And then I remember
I haven't gone back there since then.
I was all mad thinking about it, and then I did this. And I'm like, oh, that's why he does this. It's not the autistic look at my hands. It's Dad does this.
I'm expressing my anger. Why are people so stupid? It's like Italians. Are they autistic? Are Italians autistic then?
They want autistic noodles. No. Take your pineapple off my pizza. Okay. Sorry for the quality of the actual technology of the stream. Wasn't much. I had a friend who was a graveyard caretaker. Had to scare off weirdos on Halloween trying to... Yeah. Dude, it gets crazy. Like there's stories, especially in New Orleans, of people trying to have sex magic rituals on top of graves. It's disgusting shit. And again, remember, right, the tainting of ground and all that.
It's also weird too. Is like the hearing pranks that people would do to for prom invites, and they would go to a graveyard, kidnap someone, and Jasmine told me this. She didn't do that. Ask her to prom in a graveyard.
Why does she have weird friends? I don't understand her. Anyway, we won't talk about airheads.
But seriously, the fact that they even do that.
It's not normal. Anyway, you guys have been great. It's been fun. Hope you enjoyed it. Remember, Men of War, you need the artist, you need the craftsman, you need the farmer, you need women. Women because you need more men of war. Farmer because you need to eat.
Rose.
And also to bring the creation into the kingdom of heaven, right? The cultivating of the land. And the craftsman because we need the technological advantage in our war because we're always outnumbered. And all of those people, all of you men of the field, all of you men of the craft, all of you women, did I miss any? All of you folks, you need the man of war to shield you from all the evil that'll destroy you. How many good Christian artists have been completely, whether they're writers or painters or what have you, have been completely excommunicated from the artistic world with no recompense and no way to provide for themselves and provide for their passion so that they can continue art and making it beautiful and pushing culture in the ways we need it to be pushed. How many of them have been completely left out of the wayside? We're never going to hear about them or who they were, and their art's never going to get created, or it's going to get destroyed, and we're never going to see it. How many of those have happened? Without the man of war protecting you from that crap, that's exactly what the devil's going to do to you. So respect them. Right? Man of war, respect them. Artists, craftsmen, and all the rest, respect the man of war for what he does. Whew. Ooh, we almost got her. She's sniffing it. Okay. Anyway, like, subscribe, share. I forgot to leave the link to the book. I'll add that later. Right? If you have any kids you want to buy a kid's book for, David and the Three Bears, look up Robin P. Grizzly, David and the Three Bears on Amazon. Obviously we were doing every Sunday we do a new written lesson, and then Monday we go over it, hopefully around 10, usually later. It was more like 10 15.
Depends on the kids if they're
when I can get them in bed in time. Fridays we're doing a video game stream, which has been a lot of fun, just talking theory and news and fun stuff like that. I have more stuff to come naturally to figure out what we're going to talk about this Friday. That should be a good time.
And it's Saturday. We do the
podcast. Creepy podcast goes up usually around 5:00, and I come up with a topic for this week too. And we'll do one of the old ones, but we should still make one this week so we're ahead.
Okay. I have any ideas for new ones?
The latest one of that is about Lilith, the she terror demon freak, the loser bitch.
Lilith. We'll need to add it to part 2 of that, where we add the part about the lady and the dragon.
And that's true. The connection to the lady and Babylon and all that. But
I really think that's what the references in Revelations.
Ooh, and the connection to water and all that.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. But the dragon comes out of the water,
the beast comes out of the water. Yes, there's lots of Middle Eastern sources say that the devil's kingdom is under the water.
Remember that book, The Lady with the Dragon Tattoo?
Fair enough.
Possible.
Dragon. One of the boys. Could you check that out? Okay, we better get off. I think that's everything. I will hopefully get some novels out again, but I want to finish a bunch more before I add any chapters to any of them, because last year when I started a bunch of those, it was way too ambitious. I started 4 books at once, and it was too much. When I started the move, I lost track of them and all that. So I'm going to pick one and get a bunch done before I do more of that. And yeah.
I had to put him on the bed.
Oh, poor kid.
He was asleep against the...
Ooh.
He was asleep against the closet. And he fell asleep sitting up in his... Yeah.
Okay. Anyway, this is the Grizzlies signing off. You guys have a good one. We'll see you at the next one. We only have a few more episodes for the rest of the year. We're getting close. I think New Year's is the last one. And then we'll have to take a couple weeks break before we start up next semester. So I think the 3rd week of January should be the next semester starting up. And that one will be concentrating more on Christ's life and the apostles. Good times. That doesn't mean we won't talk about Old Testament stuff, because Jesus Christ referenced the Old Testament stuff in Apocrypha books, namely the Book of Enoch, all the time. It's exciting. Jude does as well.
Yeah, I remember about that.
Yeah, when we came up when we were reading the Bible the other day.
Oh, that reminds me.
Oh, no. Not another tangent. Wife. We're at 2 hours and 21 minutes.
After the stream, my grandpa's whatever. Later, we still
it's
need
almost 1 a.m. Can we do that tomorrow?
Yeah, I'm saying tomorrow.
Okay, good. Or maybe my day off. We'll see what happens. All right. Signing off. You gonna say bye?
Bye.
Grizzlies signing off. See you guys on the next one.
I can't.